Let's bring in Mark Dubowitz, the CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, joining us now live. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to help break this down for us.
Wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
All right, Mark. So first off, just talk about the significance here of this foreign aid bill when we're speaking specifically about Israel.
Well, I mean, in general, there's this sort of axis of tyrannies that threatens the United States, right? It's Iran, it's China, it's Russia. And we have three embattled democracies under threat from those tyrannies. And that's obviously Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine. And so with respect to Israel, you know, obviously the Israelis have been in a brutal fight over the past 6 months against Iran and its proxies. There's been, over the past week, the Iranians fired 321 cruise ballistic missiles and drones at Israel. Thank God Israel's air defenses demonstrated their technological wizardry in partnership with the United States and other allies and shot those down, and Israel responded. It demonstrated its both offensive wizardry and its ability to penetrate Iranian air defenses and strike at the heart of the regime. So Israel is in a fight of its life against a brutal revolutionary jihadist regime. And, you know, it's long past the time that the House takes up an aid bill for Israel, as well as for Ukraine and Taiwan.
And I guess the question is, how important, how significant is this bill when you are talking about Israel? Can they continue to fight against Hamas and Iran, Hezbollah, all of them, without this aid from the U.S.?
Well, I mean, in the long term, no. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Israel's a tiny country, 10 million people, size of New Jersey. It's got a strong army and a very competent intelligence services, but it's up against a country of 85 million people with a large military that's on the cusp of developing nuclear weapons and an army of terrorist proxies across the Middle East. So it needs the support of the United States. Again, most of that money goes to U.S. industry. It's for U.S. jobs, U.S. weapons, and it's important, again, for our economy, our defense, and it's important that we be the arsenal of democracy in defense of Israel and these other embattled democracies.
I want to talk about some of the other topics that are making headlines right now when you're talking about the Middle East, Israel, the Palestinian Authority actually threatening to reconsider its ties with the U.S. after the U.S. did veto that Palestinian request to give it full UN membership. If so, what would that really mean for the U.S. and Palestinian relationship there?
No, first of all, it's a bluff. I wouldn't take it seriously. But I mean, if they did actually decide to do that, it might be a good thing. The Palestinian Authority is corrupt. It's ineffectual. It has shown a complete inability to defend against terrorist attacks that are threatening Israel. And it's really shown itself to be incompetent and ineffectual. So I think that a reformed Palestinian Authority is badly needed. Mahmoud Abbas, who is the head of the Palestinian Authority, I think he's in his, 18th or 19th year of a 4-year term. He's 85 or 86 years old. It's time for him to part the sea and give way to a younger generation of Palestinian leaders who are prepared to stop the terrorism, stop the incitement, stop threatening Israel, and actually get serious for the first time in Palestinian history about making peace with the Jewish state.
I want to discuss another report here, as the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Hamas leaders are looking to move their base of operations out of Qatar because of pressure to accept that hostage ceasefire deal. Does that show that Qatar might be on more of Israel's side here? Is that kind of a venture away from what it's appeared over the past several months?
No, I think it's the exact opposite. I mean, I think, again, the Qataris have shown a complete inability to pressure Hamas to give up the hostages and to stop threatening Israel. So, I mean, the Qataris have forged a very close relationship with Hamas and other terrorist organizations around the world. You know, Qatar is a Islamist regime. It's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, as is Hamas. And they've been promising the United States and Israel and other allies that they would get the hostages back because they have this leverage over Hamas. They've shown an inability to do so. I think that Hamas should be expelled. And if not, Qatar needs to be held accountable for the fact that they've funded Hamas, incited Hamas, provided, weapons to Hamas, and then have pretended to be this great ally for the United States, but have shown a complete inability to deliver the goods.
So we did see last weekend, actually 1 week ago today, was Iran's attack on Israel. We've seen what appears to be Israel reacting to that. Do we expect there to be more of a back and forth? And are we heading toward the possibility of an all-out war between Iran and Israel?
Yeah. So Iran has been at war, or the Islamic Republic of Iran more specifically has been at war with Israel for 45 years after the revolution. So this was a war in the shadows. It's now a war that has come into the sunlight. And I think we would, yes, expect a continuation of that 45-year-old war. The issue is, how do you prevent this becoming a full-blown regional war? And that depends on the United States and President Biden. I mean, Biden has to show resolve. Unfortunately, I would call it the don't doctrine has failed. This is where President Biden said don't to Iran, and they launched missiles and drones at Israel. He actually said don't to Israel, and Israel obviously retaliated because it needs to create a perception in the Middle East that it's not weak, that it will hit back, and it has to reestablish deterrence, not deterrence by denial, which means denying the ability of Iran to attack it, but by deterrence by punishment, which is mean inflicting harm on its enemies, disproportionate even to the harm that they've inflict on Israel, because it lives in the Middle East. It doesn't live in the Midwest.
All right. Mark Dubowitz there, CEO with the Foundation for Defensive Democracies. As always, thank you so much for joining us to break down the latest headlines and information coming in. We know things tend to develop very fast out of the Middle East. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Yeah, again, I mean, these are critical votes. They're going to be coming up all day. Your viewers should pay close attention. And the United States is not sending its troops to fight and die in defense of these countries. It's merely being asked to provide money to U.S. defense contractors so that weapons can be provided to our allies so they can fight and die in their own defense. And that is an important a moment for American history. I mean, if we truly are the arsenal of democracy, and if we care about American leadership around the world, then we need to arm and equip our allies to be able to defend themselves against these tyrannical regimes that threaten the United States.
All right, Mark, as always, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.